We've been doing so much reporting on screwworm and how it's affecting Texas, cattle, and agriculture nationwide. So today we decided to do a broader conversation on that. We're going to bring in Joe Lovinger. He's the Texas business reporter who's been covering this, and Elizabeth Elkin, who covers agriculture for us along with the USDA. And I want to start here with Joe. Thanks so much for being here with us. Talk about where we are right now with screwworm.
Sure. So for months now, Texas officials and ranchers have been tracking the screwworm as it's made its way north through Mexico. And on June 3rd, we actually detected our first case of screwworm in an animal in Texas. So that was a calf that was in South Texas, and it's now doing better. It's been treated, but we have detected 19 cases in total. These are mostly in cattle, but also in goats and in sheep, even in a dog. So Texas is working to build up its capacity to fight back against the screwworm with sterile flies. But that's going to take months and months to get to the level where they need to be to actually eradicate the pest again. So in the meantime, they're working to help contain cases that are detected and make sure it doesn't spread further.
Every day, Elizabeth, you are covering exactly how the USDA responds and what is happening in terms of the supply chain, in terms of agriculture, in terms of cattle. Where are we now?
Yeah, so the USDA has been preparing for this for months, right? The industry knew it was coming. The USDA knew it was coming. The border has been closed to Mexican cattle for over a year. And as Joe said, the way that they're mainly trying to combat this is through releasing sterile flies to try to stop the parasite from reproducing. Basically, they have facilities that sterilize them, and then they distribute them so that the males can mate with wild female flies, and generally they only mate once, so that prevents new screwworm from being born, right? They opened a new facility in Texas to disperse the flies, and they've said that they have developed a way to double production of these sterile flies with a male-only strain of flies. That way, you know, they can just have a lot of males to release out into the wild to mate with these females. But our reporting does say that they're probably more than a year away from meaningful results because we only have a fraction of the sterile flies that we need. So while they work to build that up, they're funding some projects to develop other ways to try to combat it. So that includes, like, they're looking into employing dogs to sniff for larvae, or like using drones with thermal imaging so that they can try to identify animals that might need inspection, or like AI-assisted smartphone apps that they say could be used to screen larvae in the field so that you can say, oh, is this sterile fly larva? And then call in someone from the USDA to help.
Here's a question for both of you. Elizabeth, I will start with you on this. When you talk about more than a year away, there are going to be people that are listening to this and say, we're going to be dealing with this for more than a year. And Joe, I want you to address the ranchers aspect of that as well.
Absolutely. So they're building a facility that is kind of, we think, the USDA's like biggest hope on this. It's the largest production facility by far. It's at Moore Air Force Base in Texas, and it's not supposed to reach its initial goal of 100 million flies a week until November 2027. So that is probably the USDA's biggest hope right now of totally eradicating it. So right now there is a lot of talk of, okay, how do we try to keep it from spreading significantly? And I asked Rick Rollins, the USDA secretary, a few weeks ago, you know, how far she thinks it'll spread before we're able to like stop it. And she said that she probably needs some more time to watch how the spread is happening now and to just be able to kind of think about where things are headed, because this is so new, right, in the US right now.
You're talking to the ranchers.
That's right. Yeah, and ranchers are really having to go back into their tool shed and find things that they haven't had to do in decades. This was a big issue in Texas in the 1950s and 1960s. And so some of the ranchers, a lot of them, it's a family business. Maybe their child or their grandchild is running the ranch now, and they're now talking with grandpa about how did you take care of a calf that was infected with screwworm. And there are a lot of new treatments that the USDA has approved since then. There are a lot of new pastes and sprays that make it better to take care of a flock. but it requires a lot more hands-on inspection of animals. And that can be really hard on Texas ranches that can spread for hundreds or even thousands of acres. And there's already a labor shortage. So it's really hard to make sure you can get around and individually inspect every cow in your herd. But that's what they're starting to do now.
Elizabeth, when you talk to the USDA and when you're listening to the news conferences and getting the information, is there any sense of how widespread they think this will be, or do they feel they have a good handle on it?
I think it's really hard to tell at this point. I mean, I think the problem is they're not totally sure how it got here to begin with, like whether it spread from a cow or whether it was flies like coming in by air. I asked a couple of weeks ago and they still were not sure quite how it initially spread. I think it spreads fast. It is difficult to contain, and they're not totally sure what this will look like yet. But Brooke Rollins has said that she's already talking to states like New Mexico about what it might look like if it goes there. So they're kind of preemptively talking about where it might go next. But it's hard at this point to say exactly what that spread's going to look like.
Appreciate you both being here, keeping us up to speed on Screwworm. Thank you so much for the reporting.
Thanks for having us.